Hey, what's up to it, kids? Shabbat Shalom. Joey here, and I'm going to be your host on this week's Sabbath School. You remember a couple of weeks back when Miss Bethany did that really cool song where she had cups and she was like doing all that stuff? Wasn't it really cool? Let me ask you a question. Who all tried it at home? I know I did. The kids did. We're all over here sitting there doing like that. Wasn't it really, really hard? Oh, I couldn't get it. I mean, I'm sitting there trying and I just couldn't get it. Were you able to do it at home? Yeah, I hope you were. Well, I just wanted to let you know, you probably see these cups sitting right here. I'm not going to be doing a song like that. It's just, it was too far past me to be able to do. But what I thought we'd do instead is a cool little trick. So let me put a little disclaimer out there before I get too far into it. Last time I taught y'all a trick, I made sure to mention that what I do is not magic. Okay, we don't do magic. Yahweh's not big on magic, is he? No, he says it's pretty bad, doesn't he? Instead, what I'm going to do is something called an illusion. Sleight of hand is what it's called. It's a trick. Literally, I'm going to do something and make you think I'm doing something different. That's why it's called a trick, okay? So, do you want to see the one I'm going to do today? All right. Hey, and I tell you what, when I get through with it later in the episode, how about I teach you how to do it too? That'd be cool. All right, let's do this thing. All right, what I got here is 3 cups. So we're going to put them out like this, and we want to make sure that they're spaced real well, okay? Now, I got a little piece of cheese right here. Let's stick it on top. We'll cover it up. I'm going to give it a little tap, and there's a piece of cheese. Let's set it back up. All right. Here is piece number 2. Stick that on top. I'll tell you what, I'll use this cup. Stick it over here on top. I'm going to go, there's 2 pieces. How did we do that? All right. Let's do something totally different. I'm going to take that piece of cheese, stick it right there. Take this cup, stick it right there. Give it a 1, 2, 3. You know, that's our 3rd piece of cheese. 1, 2, 3, and it's not in there. What happened? Hey, wait a minute. Think it might be in there? We got 1, 2, 3 pieces of cheese. How cool is that? All right, I tell you what, let's go ahead and get into this week's Sabbath School. We're going to have our song. We're going to start out with prayer. Then we're going to have our song. Then we're going to hear a story in Scripture where somebody did a cup trick and had a pretty cool outcome as well. All right, I'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam Vayed. Amen, amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Before we get going, I got some big news to announce. Y'all remember last week was our birthday lesson, and I'd say we had all these pregnant ladies birthing new babies for the Tuit family and for Yahweh's kingdom. Y'all might have noticed Miss Megan on last week's episode. Well, this week, she looks a little different. Today is another birthday episode of Trained Up in Torah, but it's not Trained Up in Torah's birthday. Miss Megan had her baby today. So I want to welcome little one to our family, and I know that your mommy and all your brothers and sisters and your daddy are so happy you're here. And as you have been received into your family, I want us all to think about what Yeshua said, that whoever receives one of such little children in his name receives him. And whoever receives him receives not just him, but also the one who sent him. And I pray that you will walk in Yahweh's ways all your life and walk in Yeshua's example. And as Yeshua did in Luke 2:40, and the child grew and became strong in spirit, and the favor of Elohim was upon him, we pray with your family that you will grow and become strong in spirit and be filled with wisdom, and the favor of Elohim will be upon you. In Yeshua's name we pray. Hallelujah. All right, let's get to our lesson. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Father, for this wonderful day that you've made. We thank you for bringing us to another Shabbat. We thank you for Train Up in Torah, for all that is gathered around to watch and to learn, to walk in your ways. And we just love you so much. And we pray you bless us with your presence and keep us in your care. And may we honor you and please you in all that we say and all that we do. In Yeshua's wonderful name we pray. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. I have another song I'd like to share with you. And this is based on the chapter that we're reading today. And what the part where Yehuda is actually trying to save his youngest brother, Benjamin, and take his place. The name of this song is For Our Father's Sake. For our Father's sake, please let him go. I will take his place, send him to his home. For if I return, leaving him behind, when of this he learns, our Father will die. Surely you can see what I say is true. Get him back to me. I will stay with you. Please do not take our Father's precious Son. This decision you must make when all is said and done. Oh, please remember what your servant said to you of our Father's love. Anything we do to keep him safe and bring him back in peace, as I stand before your face, I ask for his release. So interceding for his father's youngest son, Yehuda stood before this great and mighty one. What will happen next? We must wait and see. If Yehuda's plea offends, what will come to be? Oh, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, boys and girls. This is Miss Megan, and I'm super excited that you guys get to be here with us this week. When we last left off, we had Joseph's brothers come all the way back to Egypt for more food, and this time they brought their brother Benjamin. Joseph had a whole lot of feelings about this, but he invited them to dinner. Well, let's see what happens next. Let's open up our Bibles and we're going to turn to Genesis or Bereshit, chapter 44. Let's get started. And he, Joseph, commanded the one over his house, saying, "Fill the men's sacks with food as they are able to bear, and put each man silver in the mouth of his sack, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and the silver for his grain." And he did according to the word of Joseph which he spoke. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their donkeys. And when they had gone out of the city, not having gone far, Joseph said to the one over his house, "Rise up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid evil for good? Is this not the one from which my master drinks, and with which he indeed divines? You have done evil in what you have done.' So he overtook them and spoke these words to them. And they said to him, 'Why does my master say these words? Far be it from us that your servants should do according to this word. See, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver which we found in the mouth of our sacks. How then should we steal silver or gold from your master's house? With whomever of your servants it is found, he shall die, and we shall become my master's slaves as well.' And he said, 'Now also let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found becomes my slave, and you are innocent.' And they hurried. Each man let down his sack to the ground, and each opened his sack. And he searched, with the oldest first and the youngest last, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. And they tore their garments, and each man loaded his donkey and went back to the city. And Yehudah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said to them, 'What deed is this you have done? Did you not know that a man like me indeed divines?' And Yehudah said, 'What do we say to my master? What do we speak? Or how do we clear ourselves? Elohim has found out the crookedness of your servants. See, we are my master's slaves, both we and he also with whom the cup was found.' But he said, 'Far be it from me to do this. The man in whose hand the cup was found, he becomes my slave, and you go up in peace to your father.' And Yehudah came near to him and said, 'O my master, please let your servant speak a word in your master's hearing, and do not let your displeasure burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh.' My master asked his servants, saying, 'Have you a father or a brother?' And we said to my master, 'We have a father, an old man, and a young child of his old age, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him.' And you said to your servants, 'Bring him down to me, and let me set my eyes on him.' And we said to my master, 'The boy is not able to leave his father, for if he leaves his father shall die.' But you said to your servants, 'Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you do not see my face again.' And it came to be when we went up to your servant my father, that we told him the words of my master. And my father said, 'Go back and buy us a little food.' But we said, 'We are not able to go down. If our youngest brother is with us, then we shall go down, for we are not able to see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us.' Then your servant my father said to us, 'You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, Truly he is torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. And if you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you shall bring down my gray hair with evil to Sheol. And now, if I come to your servant my father, and the boy is not with us, since his own life is bound up in his life, then it shall be, when he sees that the boy is not with us, that he shall die. So your servant shall bring down the gray hair of your servant our father with evil to Sheol. For your servant went guarantee for the boy to my father, saying, If I do not bring him back to you, then I shall be a sinner before my father forever. And now, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a slave to my master, and let the boy go up with his brothers. For how do I go up to my father if the boy is not with me, lest I see the evil that would come upon my father?" Wow, talk about a cliffhanger. So, here we have Joseph testing his brothers to see if their hearts truly had changed since he had last seen them. His brothers have absolutely no idea that this man trying to enslave Benjamin is their brother that they sold so many years before. And just as Judah had promised his father, he bravely came before Joseph, explained the situation to him, and asked to redeem his brother Benjamin and stay in his place as Joseph's slave. I would certainly say that that is a change of heart. How do you think Joseph is feeling about all of this? This is so unlike the brothers he knew before. What do you think happens next? Does he keep Judah and let the rest go? Does he let them all go? Or could there be something else that happens? I guess we will just have to wait and see next week. Stay tuned and enjoy the rest of this week's Sabbath School. Shalom!
Shabbat Shalom!
Today we're learning about the
Natural appointed portions.
what she said.
And this week we are in Genesis chapter 44, and we are going to be focusing on the natural aspects of verse number 2. And it says, "And put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and the silver for his grain. And he did according to the word of Joseph, which he spoke." So we see here that we have many things in nature that show us shiny silver things, like the moon and the silver cup that we're talking about. You see?
Yeah, I see that. I see it in the picture.
And so our focus question throughout this segment is going to be asking yourselves, why did Joseph put the silver cup in Benjamin, or in Hebrew, Benjamin's grain sack, and not one of the other brothers? So we see here that silver has many uses. Can you tell me the different things that you see in this picture?
A wolf,
A silverback wolf, yeah.
a
What else?
fish,
A fish, yeah, the fish
a
is
ring,
jewelry,
and a coin and
money.
It's that. It's the necklace and a feather. It's gold.
The silver, the silverware,
Silverware.
right?
Silverware.
Yeah. So we see here that there are very much many uses and things that we can look at and see the beautiful silver color of natural things all around us.
And be careful the wolves.
And so we are going to ask ourselves, where is silver found in nature? And so we see here that silver is the most reflective metal. Silver is super shiny, and polished silver reflects 95% of the visible light spectrum, as we see in the
Pictures.
What do we see in all these pictures here?
Yahuwah's promise.
Which is what?
A rainbow.
And because of that, many mirrors are coated with it. Its reflective properties are also used for objects like telescopes, microscopes, and solar panels. So let's look and see where silver is produced. So Mexico is the leading producer of silver, and in 2017 they produced 5,600 metric tons of silver.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and Peru is the second largest producer of silver, followed by China. And so we see here that silver also has the what? Thermal conductivity.
Conductivity of any element.
Yeah, of any element. So what do we think that means? Out of all the elements, so you see all of these elements on the periodic table? Silver is the best electric conductor, and it's usually used as the standard by which other conductors are measured. Wow, I didn't even know that. On a scale of 0 to 100, silver ranks 100 in terms of electrical conductivity. Copper ranks at 97 and gold at 76. So what's another cool fact about silver?
We have a silver fork and spoon. Silver is good for your health.
So how is that? This was an interesting fact that I found when I was researching for this segment, and I am very happy to share it with you. So, a lot of people have heard the phrase born with a silver spoon in his or her mouth. And a lot of people most generally take that to mean that the child grew up wealthy. But did you know that the idiom originated as a way of saying that the person never seems to get sick? Because of the silver's germ-killing properties, in the old days, children who were fed with silver spoons were typically healthier babies. Isn't that amazing? And as it connects to our story in Genesis chapter 44 about the silver cup, we read and we come to find out that people commonly used silver vessels to hold wine and water. Today, scientists recognize silver has antibacterial properties that keep food and liquids fresher. Long ago, people recognized the benefits provided by silver for food and beverage storage. Ezra refers to silver vessels in the house of Yahuwah that were taken from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar and brought to Babylon. They were supposed to be placed in the house of Yahuwah in the temple in Jerusalem. This reveals their historical use and value. Wow! Isn't that so cool? So we see in the second part of the verse, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest and the silver for his grain, and he did according to the word of Joseph which he spoke. So now we can see that
Wheat and grains grow in nature.
wheat and grains grow in nature. So what do you see in here?
I see farmers. I see bread. I see grains.
Yeah. What do you see back here? What is that?
Nature
And fields?
and a field.
Yeah. So we see here that wheat and grains grow in nature. So they need what?
We need
What do
rain.
plants need? Yeah, they need rain and the sun, right?
Well, now when some
Right. And so,
wheat grain facts used to make green.
yeah, good job reading. And so here we have some really cool wheat and grain facts to talk about. So wheat and grains were used to make bread
Make bread.
in the Bible and are still used to make bread. And we made bread, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
So
make bread.
we use bread, and
And
the people in the Bible use bread, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they bake the
and-
matzah.
At the matzah, yeah.
Yeah.
We ate
And we learn about grain offerings in the Bible.
Yeah,
And
even a bread of life.
And who's that?
Yahshua's body.
Yeah. That is so good, Cassandra. I'm so proud of you. Okay, so that is so cool how we see how the Bible connects with nature, and we really want to focus on these connection points. So number 1, there was a famine, right?
Yeah.
So the brothers were sent by their father, Yaakov, for food, which was the grain and the wheat, right?
Yeah, I can see a little weeds
Uh-huh.
coming up and turn into grain. Cute.
Yeah. And Joseph put the silver cup in
Benjamin
grain sack.
Isaac, Joseph, and Benjamin were Rachel's 2 sons.
Yeah. So isn't that so cool that we answered our connection question?
Yep.
And so we see at our connection question, why did Joseph put the silver cup in Benjamin's grain sack? Well, do you think that's because Benjamin and Joseph were both Rachel's sons?
Rachel's sons.
Yeah. So that is all that we have for you. We were so happy to bring you the nature portion this week. We just want to leave you with this verse, and it's John chapter 6, verse 35, which says,
I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never go thirsty.
That's right. So I hope this verse reminds you of our chapter this week and how Mashiach is that bread of life, and he who believes in him will never go thirsty, right? Right, yes. And so we want to just thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the cool facts and nature elements to this portion this week. And we just want to say we look forward to seeing you next time. Shabbat Shalom.
So what'd y'all think about that cup trick that Joseph pulled? Benjamin had no idea. Nobody had any idea. But we'll find out in a later episode that it turned out for a really, really cool thing. All right, so I promised you that I'd teach you the cup trick today that I did at the beginning of the episode, and I thought I would have my assistant Sephardu right here come on and help me out. I've been calling him Sephardu since he was a baby, but Seth likes it. All right, Seth, that's what we're going to do. How about this? Let me show you the trick one more time, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so first thing, 3 cups. You come over, you put them out, just like that. All right, make sure they're evenly spaced. You take and you put a piece of cheese on here like that. You go give it a tap, and pretty cool. All right, let's set it back up. All right, make sure they're evenly spaced. Let's go with it. We'll use the same cup this time. We'll take and put it on top. I'm going to give it a tap. We got 2 pieces of cheese. Pretty cool, huh? All right, important to set it back up. Make sure they're good and even. All right, and I tell you what, we won't even do it. Last time I did it where we used the last cup, I tell you what, we'll still do that. You want to do that one or you want to do that one?
Let's do this one.
You want to do it in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put it on the middle. So you put the cheese on top. Since this is number 3, you got to give it 3 taps. So you go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And, but if we go and look under there, boom, 3 pieces of cheese. How do we do that, Seth?
Well, what you gotta do is you gotta have the cup, but when you go to put all 3 cups in here, you put a piece of cheese right there, and then you like that. So then you put it like that, then you do it like that. But when you go to do it like this, there's another piece of cheese right there.
What? Seth just did it. All right, so let me show you what Seth's talking about. All right. With any kind of illusion, there is one thing that we call, well, there's different parts of the trick. There's the setup, then there's the actual trick itself. So a lot of what we're doing over here is the setup. So all this you saw me doing where I was taking and I'm setting the cups up, look, there's nothing in there, right? Setting the cups up. I'll put this one down, right? When we go and put this cheese on top, the trick is already done. The reason why the trick is already done is there's a piece of cheese there and there's a piece of cheese there. What you did was, like Seth said, we started out with a piece of cheese at the bottom and we put all the cups on top. You take, and notice how I'm flipping these over like this. I'm exaggerating it. The reason is because I'm wanting to make sure you don't hear the cheese hitting the bottom whenever I do that. So, Seth, we go and we put a cup there. You stick it on top, you tap it, and then boom, all that stuff that you do where you're tapping it, whoa, that's the show. The trick already happened when you flipped it over. Now, how do we get 2 pieces of cheese there, Seth?
Well, you like that, and
so, Seth just did it, but let's tell him what you did. So, because we had this piece of cheese on top to begin with, we put that cup on it when we went tap, tap, right? So, we got 1 piece of cheese there. This is important because if you get this wrong, the trick messes up. You have to turn your cups over like this, all right? So you got to face it up. So I can take a cup that was on top to begin with and put it down, and here's my second piece of cheese. And you do the trick again. Boom, put it on top. How many pieces of cheese do we have there now, Seth?
2.
2, all right. I'll show them the next part.
Then you put another piece of cheese there.
All right, set it up for the next one.
Alright, now we're gonna put this piece of cheese right in there. Nothing there. And then you come right here, you have 3 pieces of cheese there.
Is that cool or what? All right, do you think y'all can do that at home? I bet you can. Hey, but I want to tell you something that I learned after doing a couple of takes on this that actually I just did it. Do you see how the cheese stuck to the bottom of this cup? All right, that will mess you up in your trick. And here's what I found. When you go to do this, if you tap too hard, what that does is that pushes the cheese to the bottom of the cup in front of it and it sticks. You don't want it to stick, so make sure when you're tapping, you tap lightly, or what I've been doing is, you see how there's a lip here? I've been putting my finger in between it so that when I tap, it doesn't go all the way down on top of it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Is that pretty cool?
Yep.
Thank you for your help, brother. All right, y'all, let's get into our next segment, and we'll go have some more Sabbath school.
Beten Gimel Dalet Hey and Bob and Zion Chet and Tet and Yod and Kaf Lamed Mem Nun Samek Ayin Pei and Sade Kof and Resh Sin and Shin and Tav.
Shalom. Hello, boys and girls. It's time for another Hebrew word lesson. Today's set of Hebrew words comes from chapter 44 in the book of Genesis, or Bereshit. As always, if you are ready to learn, then let's go. The first word we see is maleh. It's the Hebrew word that means to fill. We spell the word maleh with the following letters: Mem, Lamed, and Aleph. Maleh. The second Hebrew word we see is amtachat. It means a sack. We spell amtachat with the following Hebrew letters: Aleph, Mem, Tav, Chet, and Tav. Amtachat. The third word we see is gevia, and it means cup or goblet in Hebrew. We spell gevia using the following Hebrew letters: Gimel, Bet, Yud, and Ayin. Gevia. The fourth word we see is chamor, and it means donkey in Hebrew, specifically a male donkey. We spell it using the following letters: Chet, Mem, Vav, and Resh. Chamor. The fifth word we see is Ra. It means evil in Hebrew. It's a short word with only 2 Hebrew letters, and they are Resh and Ayin. Ra. The sixth word that we see on the screen is Tov. It actually means good in Hebrew. We spell Tov with the following Hebrew letters: Tet, Vav, and Bet. Tov. The seventh and final Hebrew word that we see is Sahav, and it's the word for gold. We use the following letters to spell Sahav: Zayin, Hey, and Bet. Sahav. Now it's time to review the 7 words we just learned. You know what to do by now. I want you to shout out the words in Hebrew as you see them pop up on the screen. Get ready, because here we go. Good job, boys and girls. You've learned another set of Hebrew words, and that's awesome. Keep practicing the words you learn, and until next time, Shabbat Shalom, V'litriot.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is Miss Soraya here for this week's history lesson. Now, normally myself, along with Miss Aaliyah, are here for nature lessons, but since I love history so much, Miss Aaliyah is going to continue sharing nature lessons while I move on to history. In this week's chapter, Joseph had his silver cup put in Benjamin's sack, so today we are going to be talking about silver in ancient Egypt. So, let's get started. In early history, Egyptians may not even have known that silver existed. They could get gold from the mountains of the eastern desert and Nubia, but at first the Egyptians had no word for silver. When they did run across it, they seemed to think it was a type of gold. They described it as white metal. When the Egyptians were finally introduced to silver, they probably held it as more valuable than gold. During the Old Kingdom, it continued to be rare. On lists of valuables, objects of silver were listed above objects of gold. If jewelry was made of silver, it was almost always thinner than it would have been had it been made of gold. By the Middle Kingdom, however, silver was considered less valuable than gold. By this time, silver probably wasn't so rare to Egyptians, and was brought to Egypt from Western Asia and the Mediterranean. From the New Kingdom onwards, there was a readily available supply of silver. Studies of the price of metal between the 12th and 19th dynasty seem to show that the value of silver did not fluctuate much in this time, staying at about half that of gold. Copper was worth about 1/100th of the value of silver. A shat is a measurement of silver. At the end of the 18th dynasty, a goat cost half a shat of silver. A cow was worth 8 shat, and a typical house 10 shat of silver. Well, that's all for now. I hope you had fun and have a blessed week, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Shalom!
Hey friends, this is Miss Jordan, and before we get started on today's moral lesson, I need you to pause the video and go get your parents. Hey parents, today's moral story has a few harder themes and words used in it, so please review the words on the screen and determine if you think it's something your children can handle or that you want them to hear about today. If not, that's fine. Just skip ahead or use the timestamps below in the description to skip ahead to a different section of today's lesson. Thank you. Today's moral lesson comes to us in a story called Tiger and Tom by J.E. White. The day was pleasant in that particularly pleasant part of summertime, which the boys call vacation, when Tiger and Tom walked slowly down the street together. You may think it strange that I mentioned Tiger first, but I assure you Tom would not have been in the least offended by the preference. Indeed, he would have told you that Tiger was a most wonderful dog and knew as much as any two boys, though this might be called extravagant. Nearly a year ago, on Tom's birthday, Tiger arrived as a present from Tom's uncle, and as the dog leapt with a dignified bound from the wagon in which he made his journey, Tom looked for a moment into his great wise eyes and impulsively threw his arms around his shaggy neck. Tiger was pleased with Tom's bright face and affectionately licked his smooth cheeks, so the league of friendship was complete in an hour. Tom had a pleasant round face, and you might live with him a week and think him one of the noblest, most generous boys you ever knew. But someday you would probably discover that he had a most violent temper. You would be frightened to see his face crimson with rage as he stamped his feet, shook his little sister, spoke improperly to his mother, and above all displeased his great Father in heaven. Now, I'm going to tell you of something which happened to Tom on this account, which he never forgot to the end of his life. Tiger and Tom were walking down the street together one pleasant day when they met Dick Casey, a schoolfellow, or a schoolmate, of Tom's. "Oh, Dick," cried Tom, "I'm going to Father's grain store a little while. Let's go up in the loft and play." Dick had just finished his work in his mother's garden and was ready for a little amusement. So the two went up in the loft together and enjoyed themselves for a long time. But at last, one of those trifling disputes arose, in which little boys are so apt to indulge. Pretty soon there were angry words. Then, oh, how sorry I am to say it, Tom's wicked passions got the mastery of him, and he beat little Dick severely. Tiger, who must have been ashamed of his master, pulled hard at his coat and whined piteously, but all in vain. At last Tom stopped from mere exhaustion. "There now," he cried, "which is right, you or I?" "I am," sobbed Dick. "And you tell a lie." Tom's face became crimson, and darting upon Dick, he gave him a sudden push. Alas, he was near to the open door. Dick screamed, threw up his arms, and in a moment was gone. Tom's heart stood still, and an icy chill crept over him from head to foot. At first he could not stir, then he never knew how he got there, but he found himself standing beside his little friend. Some men were raising him carefully from the hard sidewalk. "Is he dead?" almost screamed Tom. "No," replied one. "We hope not. How did he fall out?" "He didn't fall," groaned Tom, who never could be so mean as to tell a lie. "I pushed him out." "You pushed him, you wicked boy," cried a rough voice. "Do you know you ought to be sent to jail, and if he dies, maybe a harsh punishment?" Tom grew as white as Dick, whom he had followed into the store, and he heard all that passed as if in a dream. "Is he badly hurt?" cried someone. "Only his hands," was the answer. "The rope saved him. He caught hold of the rope and slipped down, but his hands are dreadfully torn. He has fainted from pain." Just then Tom's father came in and soon understood the case. The look he gave his unhappy son, so full of sorrow, not unmingled with pity, was too much for Tom, and he stole out followed by the faithful Tiger. He wandered into the woods and threw himself upon the ground. 1 hour ago he was a happy boy, and now what a terrible change. What had made the difference? Nothing but the indulgence of his wicked, violent temper. His mother had often warned him of the fearful consequences. She had told him that little boys who would not learn to govern themselves grew up to be very wicked men and often became murderers in some moment of passion. And now Tom shuddered to think he was almost a murderer. Nothing but Yahweh's great mercy in putting that rope in Dick's way had saved him from carrying that load of sorrow and guilt all the rest of his life. But poor Dick might die yet. How pale he looked, how strange. Tom fell upon his knees and prayed to Yahweh to spare Dick's life, and from that time forth, with Yahweh's help, he promised that he would strive to conquer his wicked temper. Then, as he could no longer bear this terrible suspense, he started for Widow Casey's cottage. As he appeared at the humble door, Mrs. Casey angrily ordered him away, saying, "You have made a poor woman trouble enough for one day." But Dick's feeble voice entreated, "Oh, Mother, let him come in. I was just as bad as he." Tom gave a cry of joy at hearing these welcome tones and sprang hastily in. There sat poor Dick with his hands bound up, looking very pale, but Tom thanked Yahweh that he was alive. "I should like to know how I am to live now," sighed Mrs. Casey. "Who will weed the garden and carry my vegetables to market? I am afraid we shall suffer for bread before the summer is over," and she put her apron to her eyes. "Mrs. Casey," cried Tom eagerly, "I will do everything that Dick did. I will sell the cabbages, potatoes, and beans, and will drive Mr. Brown's cows to pasture." Mrs. Casey shook her head incredulously, but Tom bravely kept his word. For the next few weeks, Tom was at his post bright and early, and the garden was never kept in better order. Every morning, Tiger and Tom stood faithfully in the marketplace with their baskets and never gave up, no matter how warm the day, till the last vegetable was sold and the money placed faithfully in Mrs. Casey's hand. Tom's father often passed through the market and gave his little son an encouraging smile, but he did not offer to help him out of his difficulty, for he knew if Tom struggled on alone, it would be a lesson he would never forget. Already he was becoming so gentle and patient that everyone noticed the change, and his mother rejoiced over the sweet fruits of his repentance and self-sacrifice. After a few weeks, the bandages were removed from Dick's hands, but they had been unskillfully treated and were drawn up in very strange shapes. Mrs. Casey could not conceal her grief. "He will never be able to help as he did before," she said to Tom. "He will never be like other boys, and he wrote such a fine hand. Now he can no more make a letter than that little chicken in the garden." "If we only had a great city doctor," said a neighbor, "he might have been all right. Even now his fingers might be helped if you should take him to New York." "Oh, I am a poor woman, too poor," she said, and burst into tears. Tom could not bear it, and again rushed into the woods to think what could be done, for he had already given them all his quarter's allowance. All at once a thought flashed into his head, and he shook as if in shock. Then he cried in great distress, "No, no, anything but that. I can't do that." Tiger gently licked his hands and watched him with great concern. Now came a terrible struggle. Tom paced back and forth, and although he was a proud boy, he sobbed aloud. Tiger whined, licked Tom's face, rushed off into the dark corners, and barked savagely at some imaginary enemy, and then came back, and putting his paws on his young master's knees, wagged his tail in anxious sympathy. At last Tom took his hands from his pale, tear-stained face, and looking into the dog's great honest eyes, he cried with a queer shake in his voice, "Tiger, old fella, dear old dog, could you ever forgive me if I sold you?" Then came another burst of sorrow, and Tom rose hastily as if afraid to trust himself, and almost ran out of the woods. Over the fields he raced with Tiger close at his heels, nor rested a moment till he stood at Major White's door, nearly 2 miles away. "Do you still want Tiger, sir?" "Why, yes," said the old man in great surprise. "But it can't be possible that you want to sell him. Do you, my boy?" And the kind old gentleman gave Tom a quick, questioning glance. "Yes, please," gasped Tom, not daring to look at his old companion. The exchange was quickly made, and the $10 in Tom's hand. Tiger was beguiled into a barn, the door hastily shut, and Tom was hurrying off when he turned and cried in a choking voice, You'll be kind to him, Major White, won't you? Don't whip him. I never did, and he's the best dog." "No, no, child," said Major White kindly. "I'll treat him like a prince, and if you ever want to buy him back, you shall have him." Tom managed to falter, "Thank you," and almost flew out of hearing of Tiger's eager scratching on the barn door. I am making my story too long, and I can only tell you in a few words that Tom's sacrifice was accepted. A friend took little Dick to the city free of expense, and Tom's money paid for the necessary operation. The poor crooked fingers were very much improved, and were soon almost as good as ever. And the whole village loved Tom for his brave, self-sacrificing spirit, and the noble atonement he had made for his moment of passion. A few days after Dick's return came Tom's birthday, but he did not feel in his usual spirits. In spite of his delight in Dick's recovery, he had so mourned over the matter and had taken Tiger's loss so much to heart that he had grown quite pale and thin. So, as he was allowed to spend the day as he pleased, he took his books and went to his favorite haunt in the woods. He lay down under the shade of a wide-spreading maple and buried his face in his hands. How different from my last birthday, thought Tom. Then Tiger had just come, and I was so happy, though I didn't like him half as well as I do now. Tom sighed heavily, then added more cheerfully, "Well, I hope some things are better than they were last year. I hope I have begun to conquer myself, and with Yahweh's help, I will never give up trying while I live. But oh, how much sorrow and misery I have made for myself as well as for others, by only once giving way to my wicked, foolish temper. And not only that, but," added Tom, with a sigh, "I can never forget that I might have been a murderer, had it not been for the mercy of Yahweh. Now, if I could only earn money enough to buy back dear old Tiger." While Tom was busied with these thoughts, he heard a hasty, familiar trot, a quick bark of joy, and the brave old dog sprang into Tom's arms. "Tiger, old fellow," cried Tom, trying to look fierce, though he could scarcely keep down the tears. "How came you to run away, sir?" Tiger responded by picking up a letter he had dropped in his first joy and laying it in Tom's hand. "My dear child, Tiger is pining, and I must give him a change of air. I wish him to have a good master, and knowing that the best ones are those who have learned to govern themselves, I send him to you. Will you take care of him and oblige? Your old friend, Major White." Tom then read through a mist of tears, "P.S. I know the whole story. Dear young friend, be not weary in doing well." The end.
Y'all, hasn't this been a great Sabbath school? I mean, I've enjoyed every part of it, haven't you? All right, do y'all think y'all are prepared to do the cup trick at home? Now, one more thing that I forgot to mention is the type of cup that you use is very important. You see how I got paper cups? We had some of those plastic solo cups over there, and if you use those, you can hear the piece of cheese, I can't even make it do it. You hear like when I do it real hard, it does that. Well, in the plastic cups, you can really hear it. So make sure you use a paper cup. You can use something like this, or you can even get those, those little bitty ones like you use for mouthwash and stuff like that. Either way, that'll work great. But let's finish up our Sabbath school. We're going to have another song. We're going to have our craft, and then somebody's going to pray us out. You'll have a great Sabbath. See ya.
It's about giving and sharing, loving and sharing, lifting a heavy load, leveling an uphill road. It's causing a bitter cup of strife to be turned into a river of life. The power of Yahweh using His love to work a miracle. It's about giving and caring, loving and sharing, lifting a heavy load, leveling an uphill road. It's causing a bitter cup of strife to be turned into a river of life. The power of Yahweh using His love to work a miracle. Yay! Yay. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good day, everyone. Memory verse today will be Genesis 44:13. Genesis 44:13. And they tore their garments, and each man loaded his donkey and went back to the city. We use donkeys for many things, for carrying our luggage, or even food, or even us to go to different places. We also like to have them as friends or pets, and we have used them forever, and we still use them. They are so sweet when they want to, and also can be very mean. You just have to watch it. Alright, our memory verse is Genesis 44:13, and they tore their garments, and each man loaded his donkey and went back to the city. Thank you, everyone, and you have a very blessed Shabbat.
We're going to be doing today's snack and craft. So we're going to be making a grain bag, and this will represent the grain bags that the 12 sons of Jacob were carrying when they went back to Canaan, and that had the silver cup inside. And then we're going to be making some yummy whole grain crackers that you can put inside your bag. So my name is Miss Sarah, and
I'm Salome. I am Nazareth. I'm Gideon.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, so we're going to start out by going over some supplies you will need. You're going to need a piece of cloth that's going to be at least 1 foot by 1 foot, probably a little bit bigger than that. You're going to need something to trace with, like a marker or a fabric pencil like I have here. You're going to need scissors, so parents, you might need to help out with that. If you have one of these handy little rollers, that might make things a little easier, but if you don't, that's fine too. You can just use the scissors. Also, you're going to need either some ribbon or some yarn. Either one will do. I'll be using ribbon in the demonstration, but yarn will work just fine. And finally, you're going to need some circles, a couple different sizes. I just used a Pyrex lid, and one of them needs to be about 12 inches in diameter. If you can find, it doesn't have to be a lid, whatever you can find to trace around, maybe a platter. And then this other one is about 8.5 inches, so a little bit smaller. And they're gonna go one inside of the other, just like that, when you trace them. And that's all you need. Alright, so you're gonna start out by tracing your large circle. You lay your fabric out nice and flat. Trace your large circle all the way around. Make sure it's nice and dark so you can see it when you cut it out. And then you're going to take your smaller circle and get it right in the middle and trace around that one as well. Now you're going to take your marker or your fabric pencil or whatever you have, and you want to make 2 little marks on your inner circle about 1 inch apart. Each set is going to be about 4 inches apart, give or take. It doesn't have to be exact. So again, 2 little parallel marks, each about 4 inches apart around the inner circle. And there doesn't have to be a certain amount of them. Okay, and then you're going to take either your little rolling cutter or your scissors and just cut on those little lines that you made all the way around. And this is going to create little openings for you to weave your yarn or your ribbon through. So you can see there, I'm showing you how it's cut open. Okay, and now you're going to take your scissors and just cut just around the outer large circle. Alright, now you're going to take your fabric and you're going to take either your yarn or your ribbon, and you want to begin to weave it through. And you're going to start by weaving it from the outer part of the fabric to the inner part of the fabric on your first little 2 notches there. So in and then back out, so it looks like this. And then you're just going to continue to do that, weaving it in and out all the way around. Just gonna speed it up here a little bit, make it go faster. So this ribbon is just gonna be the tie that kind of gathers your bag up and holds it together. So I'm gonna test it out by putting a few Legos here and then fold it over a little bit, and as you see, when we pull the ribbon, it'll gather up all the way around and create a little pouch. And make sure your top's not folded inside. And then at this point you can grab your scissors, and if your ribbon or your yarn is a little too long, you can trim it down just so it's long enough for you to tie a bow on your grain sack. Okay, and then go ahead and just tie a bow, make it nice and tight, and there you go. Now you have your grain sack that you can put your Legos or your crackers or whatever you want in there. Alright, let's get started. You're going to start out by, in a large bowl, you're going to add your 2.5 cups of all-purpose wheat flour, a 1/4 cup of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt into the bowl together. And don't forget to preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and go ahead and put your baking sheet in there to warm up, to preheat. Alright, so once you get those 3 ingredients in there, just go ahead and mix it up. And then you're going to get, after that, you're going to need a small bowl, and you're going to add your 1/2 cup of warm water and your 1/4 cup of extra virgin or just regular olive oil together in your small bowl. And you're going to go ahead and just take a whisk or a fork and just go ahead and beat those together until they're emulsified, just completely mixed together. And once it's fully mixed, you can go ahead and add that mixture to the flour mixture in the large bowl. And then you're going to just begin to knead the dough with your spatula as much as you can, scraping it off the sides and turning your bowl. And just mix it up as much as you can with that spatula. And at some point you're going to have to get rid of the spatula and just start working it with your hands. And you're just going to want to try to incorporate all the flour and make sure you scrape it off the sides and just get it all incorporated into that ball of dough, and it's going to take a few minutes to do that. Alright, and after you feel like you've gotten it all together, you're going to go ahead and turn it out onto your work surface. And you're going to knead it by hand about 20 times or until the dough is nice and smooth. Alright, make a nice little ball with your dough and then go ahead and get your parchment paper just about the size of your baking sheet. You're going to put your ball of dough on the parchment paper. Make it nice and round, and then go ahead and take your knife or your dough cutter, and you're going to go ahead and just try to cut it right in half, because this recipe makes 2 batches. And if you don't want to make your second batch right away, you can put it in a baggie or in some saran wrap to keep it moist. But go ahead and take your rolling pin and just begin to roll out your dough. And you're going to roll out the first piece of dough as thin as possible on the paper. You're going to be lifting it and flipping it frequently until you have approximately a 10 by 10 inch square. You're going to take your time rolling the dough as thin as you possibly can because these do puff up a little bit. And now if you want to get really fancy, you can go ahead and cut off the edges and make your dough perfectly square. I don't do that. My kids don't really care what shape their crackers are in, so I have some that are square and some that are not. But anyway, go ahead and take either your pastry wheel or your dough cutter or your knife at this point and cut your dough into 2-inch rows vertically and then horizontally to form square crackers. Cut that dough all the way through, but be careful not to cut your parchment paper. Alright, now you're going to take your last bit of salt, the last teaspoon or so, really what's to taste, whatever you like, and just sprinkle it over the top of your crackers. And then you're going to just take that whole piece of parchment paper and put it on your baking sheet that is inside your oven, and you're going to let it cook for about 9 to 10 minutes or until the edges are starting to turn golden brown. Once that happens, you can take it right out and you can pick up the paper and slide the crackers into a large serving bowl to cool. And go ahead and do the same thing with your second batch if you'd like. And these crackers can be stored at room temperature in an airtight container for up to 3 days. Enjoy!
Shabbat Shalom, friends. We had fun learning with you today. Joey's going to say our closing prayer. Would you pray with us?
Dear Yahweh, thank you for this beautiful Shabbat and for this week. Thank you for everyone watching this video. Help us through this next week until our next Shabbat. In Yeshua's name, Amen.